Hello, Deborah.
Hi, Fala. So nice to see you.
You too. And thanks for the mooncake.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you love it. I have one right
Delicious.
behind me too.
Oh, wow.
You look gorgeous. First of all, it was such a pleasure to watch the movie at TIFF. The whole movie was so special. Congratulations to the cast and crew of Ballad of a Small Player. And
Thank
I was
you.
actually a little bit overwhelmed and emotional in the audience because the strong
Oh,
connection and seeing, that scene when you and Deanie and Colin appeared, it was very overwhelming. And I was so proud of you
wow.
and just we were admirers of all of you giants. So
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Let's get started right away. We'd love to
Sure,
chat with
yeah.
you about your character. So, what first drew you to the role of Dao Ming when you read the script?
Gosh, so much. I think I would like to start with Edward Berger, our director. I initially met Edward over Zoom first before I even read the script. So he sent me the script after our first meeting. Maybe he was like waiting to see if I was a good fit before he even shared the script. But as soon as after our first meeting went all really well, and I really love his work. All Quiet on the Western Front, Conclave, Patrick Melrose, knowing that I was gonna meet him, I watched all of those movies again and TV shows. So that meeting went really well, and then he sent me the script, and then I read the book and the script kind of like within a few hours. Like the book took me a little while, but I got the gist of the book. And I just really love the world that is set up, in Macau and in Hong Kong, and the complexity and the depth these two characters have, and especially Colin's character. I was really moved by his journey and his struggles, but also like I feel connected to Dao Ming, this character who's a Chinese woman who was born in China. So I have a little bit also parallel kind of lives to her. Then I started to imagine the character without even doing too much research and all of it, and it just felt like really close to me, but also foreign at the same time, which is always interesting to have that contrast, and that propels me and perks my curiosity for the character.
I mean, when you said the closeness, you could almost feel it on screen. There's like
Oh.
there's a gel between you and the character that you're putting onto the screen. It was very heartwarming. Can you share how the audition went? And we heard that your chemistry with Colin really came through like right away.
I unfortunately didn't have the chance to audition with Colin, but I actually auditioned with another reader actor because Colin wasn't available, and so I read with someone else in New York. But Edward flew all the way from Europe to New York to meet me, and we spent a whole afternoon working on the scenes. And it was the first time where I feel the director just gave so much freedom and I guess, encouragement that I felt that I was really free in that room that day. I was able to try different things, and the ideas came from me, but also came from all our discussions prior to this meeting. And it was the first time meeting him in person. And I just love his energy as a director that's really nurturing and supportive, but so observant. I feel like he was watching me even when I'm not playing in the scene. So I felt very seen and understood by him. So that connection was already made. And then when I met Colin in Macau, actually, no, I met Colin over Zoom before I arrived Macau. That was a really lovely Zoom meeting. But like when you see somebody in person, it's a whole new experience. I was a little starstruck, of course, in the first like 5 minutes. But then there's like a sense of calm and just generosity that he brings into the room that just really eased my nerves, on the first day, and I just really love working with him so much.
Yeah, there is a really a good sense of like warmth and, just like a friendliness and like a
Mhm.
peaceful aura that your whole cast and crew brought onto the stage when you walked on. I'm like, oh, this is so wonderful. And I remember Edward Berger referring to you as like magnificent Fala Chen. And I was just
Oh,
like
thank
clapping.
you. Thank you so
Uh,
much.
and it's so funny that you said you were starstruck by Colin. I'm sure like all of Toronto was starstruck by you.
Oh,
Um,
thank
so
you.
the film took place in Macau and Hong Kong, places that you know quite intimately,
Yes.
and perhaps more than a lot of people like on the cast and
Yeah,
crew. So how did your personal connection add to those, like personal connection with the cities add
yeah.
to the way that you portrayed Dao Ming?
Thank you for that question. I never thought of it that way because I feel like I want to remove myself from my connection where I feel like loved and supported and I have colleagues and I've worked there for so long, that kind of familiarity away from Dao Ming, because Dao Ming is kind of a drifter. She goes to
Mm,
Macau to find work and opportunity. She doesn't feel she belongs there or anywhere actually. So there's a sense of like strangeness of the place for her. And only until she, when you see her in Hong Kong at Llama Island on that little houseboat,
mhm,
that's the only moment that you see her more as herself and as you see her true spirit in a
mhm.
way, and she's more comfortable. But it's still kind of she's a drifter, she's floating around. So I actually was really trying to remove myself from Hong Kong and Macau in a weird way, the opposite.
Oh wow, that's so interesting. That drifting mentality and like that kind of like lost meandering spirit was
Yeah.
something that like you portrayed really well too. So maybe it's because you actually like distanced a little bit, right? To
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But, as an actor, it was lovely to be in Hong Kong, Macau, working along. Most of our crew are Cantonese Hong Kong crew, whom so many faces look so familiar, people that I've worked with, our sound engineer, like everybody that, who had worked with me in the beginning of my career, 20 years ago. Just to be in that environment, seeing familiar faces, hearing Cantonese and English shouting, translating on set, it was quite sensational and really heartwarming for me.
Mhm. Speaking of language, it was really interesting. I thought, as a Chinese North American who
Mhm.
obviously watches a lot from everywhere because of the diaspora and how our
Yeah.
families went all over the world. I thought it was so neat that, you yourself are trilingual or more than that, right? And then, of course, in the film, you got to use both Chinese and English.
Yeah.
And the character demanded that, right? So, what other commonalities do you find between, like on a deeper level, do you find between yourself and Dao Ming? And in your view, like, what does that ultimately represent in Doyle's story? And how do you think your character also touches the viewer?
I think Dao Ming has multiple identities, which I also share, that I've lived in different decades of my life in different places. And Dao Ming, obviously, she hasn't had, the opportunity to travel far, but she also had many different jobs. And, in my backstory for her, and this gets boring, but like, the type of specific jobs that she had done and of her journey all the way from rural China to Macau, how she learned English and how she became so smart and savvy with, being a loan shark and all of it. It kind of, I just felt like she's a really smart woman, that life
Mhm,
had just kind of have not been kind to her, that she just had this streak of bad luck all her life. And that
mhm,
happens. And that happens with Doyle's character, Doyle, as well. So these two characters, they're like, the film is called The Small Player, Ballad
mhm,
of a Small Player. So these are like little two small player people on the kind of on lower bottom of the kind of in on the casino floors that are like little people. And I just feel like we're little two prawns like swimming in the ocean of capitalism and getting lost, getting swept away by the ocean of money and greed and commercialism. So it's quite moving seeing the struggle of these like little people kind of who are helpless against, the current. So that's where I kind of find Dao Ming's kind of weightlessness, but also like her still like making decision for herself. And in the film, you'll discover she finds the courage and to surrender,
mhm.
which is really beautiful as well. Her own agency, that I admire so much.
I found just your description just now so touching because
Thank
yeah,
you.
we're all kind of floating, right, in this
Yeah,
big ocean. And
yeah.
yet in those moments where the screen zoomed in on you and Colin, it was so intimate and it was so like you
Mhm.
were each other's heroes, like, and it was
Yeah,
so strong.
yeah.
So yes, and all that backstory was not boring at all. I thought that was fascinating.
Oh no, I can go on for 5 hours. You
Um,
wouldn't have trained me, but yeah, I love it. It's kind of part of my job that I love the most is to, activate my imagination, but also do a lot of research and watch a lot of documentaries, talk to a lot of people, and learn a lot about the world. And I feel like, yeah, like you said, language aside, culture aside, I feel like we're more connected than ever, but we're
Mhm.
or like kind of misunderstanding each other more than ever because of
Mhm.
the connectivity that we have, the devices we have, internet. It does feel like, and Netflix is kind of the perfect platform for this film because it streams worldwide. Everyone around the world will watch this film. And so to have multiple languages and have this film taken place with, people of different, from different culture to tell like a cohesive story and to share similar struggles. I think it's just very, yeah, very beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful and universal, and
Yeah,
that's also
exactly.
the touching part, right? About bringing Hong Kong, Macau into that kind of scene,
Hmm.
um, and which Edward Berger spoke about when during the Q&A at TIFF, which I
Yeah,
thought was fantastic. And you've spoken about how the director Edward Berger invited your input as a Chinese woman, right, in shaping Dao
yeah.
Ming. How did that collaboration influence the final character we see on the screen?
Oh, it's everything. We had so many in-depth conversation about religion, about tradition. He was really, it's amazing to me that knowing as much as he does, he came on board on this project many years ago. I came in kind of like very late in the preparation stage, but he was just like, tell me anything that you feel that's cliche or you feel like that we can work on, or for me as a director, as a person to understand better from Dao Ming's perspective, from a Chinese person's perspective. And I was like, oh, I'm no expert in any of these, but I have certain thoughts and imagination even that I shared a lot with him about the Hungry Ghost Festival, about August, the about spirituality, the more Eastern philosophy of the idea of reincarnation, of consequences of of things that you do, bad deeds, and what money and like unexpected gifts or money brings you. And we're kind of Chinese people are afraid of like a sudden like a big jackpot, and
Yeah.
that's something like yeah, it's like, oh, like I got to do something to compensate for that because I can't accept all. But I think Doyle is quite the opposite. He just wants to win, millions of dollars, and he's like, that's what I want. So there's like philosophically like many differences, but it totally informs a lot about, like of the character for myself, but I think for the whole story as well. And I had very long chats with Rowan Joff when our screenwriter who came to visit us in Macau, and we sat aside and like, chat about the script. And I learned a lot about how he came to adapt it, which is very different from the book in some sense. Um, and what's in his imagination really helped me to understand the character even deeper as I was already like filming and working on it. So yeah, it was just a very organic, collaborative process that I felt like very included as part of the creative, which I really, really deeply appreciate.
That's great. I think it shows on screen too, because
Great.
oftentimes when you show a different culture, it can look like overly mystical or like
Yeah.
one-sided. But this was a very like
Yeah.
it was so balanced. It was like it's so cohesive because you could feel like the Ghost Festival, you could feel like the reincarnation and everything that you said in your script and everything. Like
Yeah.
it was so spiritual. So
Thank you.
I thought it was
That's a
great.
peripheral though of the story. I think at the core, like of any story, it's the
Hmm.
human spirit. It's the
Yes.
humanity of these people, whether, it's a very flawed guy or, she's also, Dao Ming is also like deeply flawed and troubled and sad and so sad. So it comes down to, and I think Edward nailed it, in the way that he shoots it, our emotions and our journey and changes throughout the story. And then, the casinos, the money, the gambling, and even like the spirituality, religious side of it, it's all just like a support to give us kind of like gateway into the heart of these two people, and even Toda's character too. And she has her story and her culture, like she brings another side of it, kind of representative of like the West chasing, Doyle. So yeah, it's at the heart of it, we're trying to get into really deep inside of these characters.
Like the humanity, the guts,
Mhm.
like on the screen, it's very
Yeah,
raw.
yeah.
And see, in that sense, there's a really beautiful tension between Dao Ming and Doyle.
Mhm.
And for you and Colin, how did that dynamic sort of build off screen? Like I know that you guys had, worked on the characters together, and there was poetry apparently that you guys shared on the
Yes.
set.
Yeah. I mean, he's a poet through and through. Not only he just writes a poem and within 5 minutes and he just like toss it on, I'm like, this is really good poetry. You should like, he's like, oh, I wrote hundreds like over the years. I'm like, you should publish a book. But he's also like, through poetry, he brings into his acting work as well, like a sense of meticulous articulation from moment to moment, scene to scene, line to line. But there's
Mhm,
this sense of like abandonment and trying to constant break of the form so that is not, textbook like drama school kind of like scene study kind of. It's just so fluid. He works with the camera and Edward and me, and it's constantly trying to find new ways of expressing. So yeah, he's such a poet of a
mhm.
person, of an actor, of an artist.
Wow. I mean, what it would be like to be on that set with you guys. How would you imagine Colin or yourself use three poetic words to describe Dao Ming? Three
Dao
words.
Ming.
How would you describe her? Yeah.
Hmm. I would say drifting, curious, and lost. Yeah, she's very lost. It's a very sad. These are all sad words. I was like trying to look for something, but there's always beauty in sadness too, and beauty in failure even. So
Mm-hmm.
Dao kind of embodies that, which you don't often see on screen. It's always the triumph and the glorious moments, but all of her kind of glory lives in surrendering and yeah, kind of giving up in a way too. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I find it fascinating. Yeah.
And I mean, the film does explore, guilt and redemption and the search for
Yes.
peace. Like, I feel like you were heroic actually for each other in the film.
Hmm.
What do you hope audiences take away from Dao Ming's journey?
I feel like people will take away different things, but for me, especially at TIFF, the second time watching it with an audience, I received so much more than when I watched it alone with my, colleagues in a screening room. Is that I feel like the human connectivity, even just with the live audience, feeling their like awe and hearing the audible response, it feels like we need human connections and we need empathy more than ever. And I
Mm-hmm.
hope people by watching this film and get a sense of like wanting to connect with your neighbors or if a stranger, a person who doesn't even speak your language, to have the curiosity to understand them.
Mm. Well, that was so beautiful. Well, thank you for bringing
Thank
all
you,
of that
Deborah.
to
Thank you.
screen. And
Such a pleasure. Finally speak to you.
I know. Can you say a little hello to our Fête Chinoise readers in Canada?
Hi, Fashion News 嘅讀者大家好，我係陳法拉，好多謝你哋支持小人物之歌。
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Fala.
much.
We'll see you in Toronto, hopefully sometime soon.
Hopefully, yeah. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.